Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Coffee and Bites, the show that fuels your cloud with a daily espresso to make sure that all your services are wide awake. My guest today is someone I've known for more than a decade. He was leading transformation projects while I was growing from a mid-year to a senior. So I know for a fact that he has a lot to offer to this conversation about leadership, and I'm extremely curious to pick up his brain. He recently started a new venture called Cloudsweep that we will talk a little bit more about during the episode. So without any further spoilers, Jorge, welcome to the show.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for welcoming me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for coming and participating. So everyone gets the same question from the blog. It's all about how you ended up here. So you started as a software engineer, became a team lead, executive, CXO, and now you're a founder. How has this journey been so far, and where did it all started?
Well, it's been over 30 years, so, I'm not very keen about my age, but, it is what it is. It started by I did software engineering at the university. And curiously, my first job was at the tax department. So myself and a couple of colleagues did our final project at the tax department. And we were the ones to initiate the tendency to do distributed systems, because obviously at the time everything was like IBM mainframe based at the tax department, and we were the first ones to do a distributed system there. Okay, so that's one point. We also did something very curious, which was the public accounting system. So imagine like three young kids that did the cheapest public accounting system in the world. We actually installed it all over the country, which was a good experience. And additionally, it was in production for more than 15 years. So not only it was cheap, but it was also easy to maintain because we did it. It was, based in COBOL and Motorola, Unix and stuff like that, stuff that was available at the time. Later on, I had the challenge from a company called AMS, a couple of friends that worked there. And, I started there, and first day they gave me like a huge batch and say, fix the tax bug there, since you worked at the tax department. It's like, oh man. So I digged for a few days. I managed to fix the bug. It was fun. But that was not my cup of tea. I didn't want to do COBOL. It was already old at that time. We were talking about early 90s. And there was a new project coming over. It was like doing a new front end in C++ for like a COBOL backend that they were running at multiple operators around the world. And they had an architect. The architect quit a few days after I started. They came and asked me, "Do you know C++?" And I said, "Yeah." So that's when my career as an architect started. And it was basically just luck, I guess. We had more than 150 developers working on that project. It took probably 12 months to develop it. And I was responsible not only for all the underlying architecture for the C++ code. By the way, this is 30 years ago, and it's still running in an operator in Belgium. Okay, so yeah. There's 150 people working there. I had to integrate all their code. So all my Fridays were like, okay, so I receive, dozens and dozens of code modules that were working over my architecture, and I had to integrate them all. Remember, this was 1995. I had to do everything by hand using a Pentium 100 megahertz server. Okay, so it took all night every Friday. So this was then put live in 5 different operators. So we did Vodafone Portugal, we did Airtel in Spain, that then later became Vodafone Spain. We did Poland, we did Belgium. So it was quite a challenge, because it's not only about developing the code; it's also the fun of seeing it go live. I actually participated in the go live, for instance, for Airtel in Spain. and fixed quite a few bugs there. So it was fun. After this, I went to work for HP back in '99. Another fun story was that I arrived. You didn't know anyone there. They didn't do telecom much, so they had banking projects and similar projects like that. And again, something weird happened. So I was working there for a couple of months, and the boss and all the other guys invited me for lunch and said, "We are all leaving because we are going to Nosh to start the new operator." At the time, it was called Optimos.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay. And they said, "Do you want to come with us?" And I said, "Okay, I just started this new job. I'm not coming with you." So I was instantly promoted from the lower dog in the pack to almost the top dog in the pack, not the leader, but responding to the leader. I was still young, obviously. And we did fun projects at HP. I did, and I only stayed there for a year. I did the first home banking in Portugal.
Oh.
Okay. So I introduced home banking. I helped doing that. I didn't do the coding, obviously. Mm-hmm. I actually work with a company. There's a gentleman called Paulo Rosado. He owned the company. He was our subcontractor. He is the founder of OutSystems. Okay, so.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So he was one of our. His company was subcontracting to us. And we did quite a few projects together. We also did the first electronic bill project, I think, in Europe. So we did the electronic invoice for Vodafone Portugal. I stayed for a year because then I was challenged by Vodafone Portugal, the CIO at the time, to go lead their customer service, on the IT side, the customer service, customer relationship management softwares, to launch a new software called sovle. Okay, so this was the second installation of sovle in Europe, and we did that, and so we did quite a few innovative things. I think we were the first ones in the world to integrate sovle with a billing system back in 2003. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we integrated Keenan with a billing system using order management and the product catalog. So what you worked on when we worked together was like a consequence of that initial project. So I stayed there for 5 years. We did the full architecture for CRM integration for Vodafone Portugal, which is still live today. With that experience, we actually founded a company called Self-Focus, so that you are well aware of because you work there. So the Self-Focus was founded with the objective of multiplying or replicating what we did at Vodafone Portugal in other countries. So, I started working for Self-Focus by selling our project from Vodafone Portugal to other countries. So I sold it in Saudi Arabia, I sold it in Egypt, I sold it in Kenya, I sold it in Turkey, as you participated in that project, and quite a few more. So we did quite a few CRM transformation projects, which were all extremely complicated and long. Usually they would take anything for the first phase, anything from 8 to 12 months just for the first phase. But usually they would go on for 2 or 3 years, and you would end up doing a full revolution on the customer's architecture. I have a curious story from Kenya. I always like to tell it because when we were launching Kenya, I had already done 2 or 3 of those. We were introducing CRM to them, and there was a room full of people, 50 people or something like that. And they were asking, why should we do this project? And I said, look, not only this is good for your company, but it's also good for your careers. And some of you will be promoted as part of this project if everything goes well. I forgot about what I said, right? And after we went live, 7 or 8 months later, for the first phase, I received a "You are a prophet" email. It's like, what? So I look at the email, and one of the guys were saying, look, you told us that some of us would get promoted, and we did, so you are a prophet. And it's like, oh man. It's never happened to me before. So, the life is full of interesting stories. Like, we remember a project at Vodafone Turkey, which was
Yeah.
one of the toughest ones I had. 200 people working for that project just on our side. And, if you think about the customer, the people working for the customer, people working for the other vendors. I mean, it's more than 1,000 people working on that project total. And obviously it lasted like 3 years. And I went to Turkey, almost every week for 3 years. So it was tough on me, tough on the family. It was fun. I mean, I had fun most of the time, not all the time. But I had some curious stories, like when there's a coup in Turkey, and I had 50 people on the team on site, so I had to account. I spent the night accounting for everyone and phoning people and trying to make sure that everyone was safe. Then we had to evacuate everyone from Turkey in the next 3 days. We were stuck in the hotel. So those stories also make life give salt to our lives, right? For instance, when I worked in Kenya, I used to go there like twice a month. I used to go on Fridays. I did a safari over the weekend and then have meetings on Monday and Tuesday and then come back. So that was fun as well, because obviously I like safaris, and I did more than 50, not only on this situation, but definitely it's an interesting story. After Self-Focus, I went to work for Novabase for mother company for Self-Focus for a couple of years. I did a couple of products there. I did because we were in the banking and financial services area at that time, and we did a couple of products. One is called Visio, and at the time was something that no one really understood what the product meant. And this product was supposed to create like a layer behind all your channels to give you the same business logic on all the channels. So imagine that an integration layer that your let's say mobile channels, your website, all could call the same services, so you would get uniform service and you could actually migrate from one channel to the other. So we developed a platform to design and develop those. It's still being used, so it's now being used in telecom by Self-Focus. So it was taken in by Self-Focus as part of their unified front-end offering. So I stayed there for a couple of years, and then I had the challenge of being called to a company called Selfinet to be the CIO there. And the CIO, they had a portfolio of products as well. So we developed a couple of products that were very interesting and innovative at the time. So including one that does Terraform for mobile networks. So imagine you want to install a new site. And you need to give it all the parameters and all the settings. So one of the products did just that. So basically the engineers, instead of being able to do, let's say, one site per day manually and using Excel, which is the favorite tool for all engineers, is they would be able to just run a script that would capture all the information from the network and would set up the site automatically. And this allows an engineer to do anything in between 8 and 12 sites per day, which obviously is a huge multiplier. And we also did a product to automate network anomaly detection and correction. So imagine you find a problem in the network, you reset the site, so both are still being used and sold today. And it was interesting. So we did an exit on Selfinet. We sold it to a Cyient, which is like a Indian company that is acquiring companies all over the world. So we were acquired. It was interesting as well. And then I went working for CrossJoin for a year and a half. I was on the board. CrossJoin is a company that optimizes systems, mainly performance. It's a small company, but pretty good from a technical perspective. And I was on the board, but I was not happy with what I was doing because it was mainly more bureaucratic stuff, and I'm not a bureaucratic guy. So I was a bit bored, and I said, look, I have to do something else. So I quit and decided, okay, what am I going to do now? I decided to create a startup. I think the timing was right. And here we are. So we created Cloudsweep. Cloudsweep is a SaaS platform. So we did this. I have a co-founder that also works at CrossTrain. We decided both at different times to leave. And Cloudsweep solves the problem of cloud cost. But it solves the problem of cloud cost in a different way than most other, the cloud cost problem is called FinOps. So it's the technical term for people that handle cloud cost problems. But FinOps has a problem which is mainly reactive. So the main problem is, okay, you get the bill with a high cost, someone complains to you, and then you do detective work to try to find the reason why the bill went up. So you have to look at multiple areas, things like the code, the infrastructure, so you have to use multiple tools, observability tools and stuff like that. And then if you're very good, you are able to track the problem down to the root cause and fix it. Okay, this takes months. So it's not ideal, and it does one thing, which is by being reactive, it makes it much more expensive to fix anything, because every time you have a problem, you have to do the detective work. So what we do is we make it proactive. So imagine that we take the telemetry, the billing, and the code, we look at everything, and we're going to tell you the problems you are going to have in the future if you deploy as it is. Okay, so it will give you recommendations and code fixes for infrastructure, for your code itself, and it will tell you how much each one is worth, which means that you are no longer putting costly releases in production. You can actually prevent the problem by checking how things are going first. And this is where we are. We're running pilot with 5 different cloud customers, actually quite big ones, with a very big cloud spend, with good results so far. So, and we are, we're doing everything that the startup needs, like marketing, sales, product development, everything. And one of the things that change the way you do startups right now is the introduction of AI tools for code development. Okay, and this is quite fundamental, because when I first left my previous job, I was saying, okay, what shall I do now? And I started looking for tools, and I found a tool called Cloud Code, and we're talking May last year, and I thought, oh, this is interesting. Let me see. I mean, it was my first time touching code in 25 years, maybe more than that. And it's like, okay, let me try use this tool to build something. And amazingly, it worked. It's like, oh man, this is quick. And when we started actually coding the tool, let's say in August, when we started coding Cloudsweep, what we noticed is that our productivity is like 10x versus anything you could do by hand. Not only that, but also allowed me, that did not know anything about Ruby or Python, because I never learned any of that, to do actually Python and Ruby code at a speed that is unbelievable. So I did all the front ends, all the services on the back end that relate to the front end, and in a few months. My estimation is that if I had to do that by outsourcing it, we would have easily spent at least 250K. We are now north of 3 million lines of code, and and we have not written many of them. Okay, so there's not many manual work done by us. So the revolution that we are looking at right now is so huge, and I think people are still unaware of the consequences of something like this. I mean, I'm doing some posts on LinkedIn, things like, how do you defend a startup? How do you build a moat around the startup when your competitors can catch up in weeks, not months? Okay. So, because we're looking at, this allowed a lot of people to start startups by using this technology. But if there's not much differentiator in what they're building, they will be caught either by the tool itself or by their competitors very soon. I mean, I had a discussion the other day with a company that was doing security software using AI, right? Mm-hmm. So last week, Anthropic launched a Cloud SDK for security. Imagine what happened to that company.
Exactly.
They will be gone. And not only that company, even established players. I mean, they took a drop of 10% on Friday or Thursday last week just because of that. This week, IBM took their shares went down 10% because of an SDK to modernize COBOL. Okay, so what we are seeing here is nothing less of a revolution, and this revolution is happening much faster than any other revolution, because even though I went through the telecom revolution, the web revolution. Those things took quite a few years to take ground, because most of them required you to develop things manually at a slow pace, so adoption was slow as well. What we're seeing here is like 10 times the speed as well. We get surprised every week by things that new releases of our tools can do. And we are very wary of, okay, what is the differentiator in our product that will not allow these tools to come and do the same to our product? In our case, I think we have two things. First, complexity. The tool itself has a lot of integrations with different, you have to integrate with the telemetry, it's multi-cloud, you have to integrate with the code sources, you have to integrate with the billing. All of that, obviously, it's hard work and makes it hard to replace. But fundamentally, because we are building a database of code patterns that generate cost that is not available anywhere. And that is the biggest moat, because if you have information about how a specific code pattern or a specific infrastructure pattern or a combination of both generates cost, this is not available for model training, which means that it's our secret sauce. And this is the biggest differentiator. And I think most people building startups today, they have their lives facilitated in one end, but if they don't take the right choices, they'll also be replaced quite quickly. If you don't think about, okay, I'll build something that cannot be overcome easily by development on the tool.
Yeah, exactly. It's basically the real juice needs to be some kind of, you can call it intellectual property, but more around the information itself, not around the code. Because if the code is the secret sauce, like any kid can build it probably with a vibe coding tool in the next 3 months, then you're really in trouble.
Yes. That is exactly the point. It's more about the idea and the output you extract from the idea and how that becomes a differentiator for your company than the code itself. So I think the code is becoming a commodity. I was not there at the time, but I read the history. So the first time people introduced compilers, and before that everyone was writing assembly code. What do you think that the assembly code programmers were saying? This is the end of the world. Compilers are not efficient. The code they generate is crap. All of this is exactly the same, but at a different level. Because compilers obviously are. How many people do you know that write assembly on a daily basis, right? And this is exactly the same revolution. So what we're seeing here is that code itself will no longer matter. What matters is your specification, your ideas, how you manage the code generator to generate value. Obviously, no one likes to lose their job. No one likes to be, be deprecated by a tool. But if you are smart enough to write the code, I'm pretty sure you're smart enough to write a decent spec that allows the tool to generate something that no one else has done. Okay, so but that's a very big difference. I think the other impact is the impact it has on software itself and the way that software is built and the way the ecosystem is assembled for consulting companies. I'll give you an example. A project like we used to do, that would take 12 months and involve large numbers of people and stuff like that. could now be done without the CRM tool itself in half the time with 1/5 of the people. I don't say 1/10, but I would say 1/5. And what would those people would be focused on would not be coding. They would be focusing on specs. They would be focusing on the transformation that is required on the business side. They would be focusing on integrations and how the things would work together, but not on the coding part itself. Yeah. Is this bad? No, it's not bad. It's just different. Obviously, if a consulting company does not need the hundreds of people to do the same project, some people will be out of a job. And this is very unfortunate, and it's probably the biggest consequence of AI is productivity increases actually kill jobs. Yeah, it's just like the Industrial Revolution killed jobs. The main difference is this time it's much faster. The Industrial Revolution took 80 years. This is taking 5. Yeah, in 5 years, I don't anticipate there will be coding jobs anymore. Even less in some industries. Yeah, and this is scary because people will ask, what should I do next? And transformation is risky, so this is probably something that will have societal impacts because it's not only coders. I mean, this will go for other jobs as well. I mean, do you imagine that we'll have call center people in 3 years? No. Yeah, and that's hundreds of jobs and low-end jobs as well. Yeah, so it's a scary moment from that perspective, but there's also a lot of opportunities, like in every change.
Exactly, and I think the opportunities is one of the great pieces that I see with this, because I see it as the software engineer now can focus on engineering the software and not really the coding part. Like they can figure out how the pieces connect together, and basically you can abstract from the language because the language becomes irrelevant. It's the same way that we evolved from assembly to C to Python. And you code in Python, you don't care about C and you don't care about assembly anymore. And basically now you're coding with specifications. And the only thing that you need to ensure is that your code is secure, and with something like Cloudsweep, that your code is just not going to break the buck.
Yeah, we see this as a huge opportunity for Cloudsweep because as the volume of generated code increases, the need for a tool that independently verifies your code is also big. Obviously, the spaces for performance, for code quality, and other security as well are taken because there's already software to do that. But since those areas only require one input, which is the code itself, they are very much very sensitive to the prevalence of the automation tools from the vendors. You know, Anthropic will launch, I am sure, an SDK for performance, and then if you're doing performance as your objective, the objective of your tool, what's going to happen? You are not needed anymore. In our case, because of the modes I described, it's far more difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's far more difficult. The mode is wider for our case, but I'm pretty sure there will also be, as AI develops, this problem will also be solved. So again, no one is impregnable to this. Again, even in the world of enterprise customers, okay, big banks, big telecoms, all those legacy companies, what is protecting those jobs is their inertia. It's not that it cannot be done a different way. It's just because they are used to do things a certain way. They have millions of customers. They are certified in some cases. And it's more about bureaucracy than actually being able to do it or not. So there will be a lot of jobs there in those industries that are legacy for a few more years. But as everything in life, it will change as well.
Yeah, exactly. As we saw as well on banking also moved from COBOL to more recent,
More or less, more or
or
less.
more or less, yes, a little bit of COBOL still exists, but there is already some Java, some less complex languages, and uh, legacy will always exist. Like there will always be a niche for legacy, but everything that you build from new, you will require way less coding ability, at least.
Yeah. Imagine in banking, and IBM is still selling mainframes for a reason. In banking, not having people that actually know the code and having a lot of undocumented COBOL code is what makes it difficult to move. If you have an AI that is able to read the code and create a spec for that code, and then you're able to ask the second level AI to grab the spec and create the code, and then you are able to compare the outputs and do a parallel run for 6 months between both. I mean, if you want to do it, this is the first time in almost 70 years this technology is available and widespread. So even those industries will be disrupted. It will take more time.
Yeah, and that's such an important piece that you just touch upon there, because I remember having this conversation like I think 10 years ago with a friend of mine, and at the time there was no tool for it, and he was like, "Oh, I have a piece of PHP code and I really want to rewrite it into Python. Do you know any tool that does that?" And they're like, "Nope,
Yes.
that doesn't exist." And now it does. Now it's as simple as one simple prompt.
Look, yesterday I had to, for a test, I'm building a test rig for Cloudsweep. So basically we have to prove our software works, right? So I thought, okay, maybe we get something out open source like Apache Airflow. I show, okay, I do an Apache Airflow installation in a cluster. Then I run Cloudsweep over it. I apply the fixes over a clone version of Airflow, and I show the difference in cost at the end. So I have the before and after for a very common software platform. And with this, we can open a few PRs to the Apache people so that they can fix a few cost problems. So we are contributing to society as well. I've never touched Airflow in my life. Building a cluster is not what I do. I've done it a couple of times for Cloudsweep, but that's it. And I started in the morning yesterday, and by the end of the day, I had the full setup done. It's not only about having Airflow installed in a cluster. I had the full testing rig done with all the code, the load generators built, and it worked. It just worked. And the secret of this is I used Cloud to generate the spec. The spec had all the prompts that had to be asked to Cloud Code. So if you think about it, you first start by, you build a spec, you grab the spec and tell Cloud, put this on your Cloud MD file so that you know what we're talking about. And then you run the prompts one by one. And in the end, I had to fix a couple of bugs, but it worked. And this would be something for someone that does not know Airflow, does not know, is not an expert in Terraform, not an expert in Docker. It would take at least 2 weeks between reading materials and doing experiments. It took me hours. Yeah. And imagine this done by an expert, it would take 2 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so this is the difference.
Yeah, and that's a really good workflow that you said just there, because I also feel, and I was doing it also a bit wrong when I was vibe coding, is that I wasn't approaching it with a design first principle. Yes. And if you do that, like you 10x your productivity with these tools. Yes.
Okay. One of the things we learned at Cloudsweep is how to use the tool, which Cloud Code is a tool. And people keep forgetting about it. How do you use the tool to actually give you the best results? And best results is not about speed. It's about having code that is correct 90% of the time at first try. Okay, and this requires you to configure Cloud and having a methodology to work with it so that it works. this is just an example I just told you, but we have in parallel with building Cloudsweep, we've actually built a methodology to use cloud to produce our results. And that's why we can be productive, because it's not only about, because imagine every one of our developers is like a team. Okay, yeah. So you have to treat him like a team. You're not going to give him a sprint like with a couple of changes to the code. A 1 week sprint for us is like a 6 week sprint on a regular company, and you have to fill the sprint with things that make sense, because your sprint is going to be much more, even on 1 week sprint is going to be much more dependent on what everyone else is doing. So there is a lot of complexity in doing this at scale. And every time we bring a new guy on board, we have to teach him all the basics, all the skills we've developed, all the tooling that we've developed. Imagine, I've done, for instance, 5 months ago, I developed an MCP server, very simple stuff, that allows your front end to talk with your back end while they are developing. So, yeah, so one of the key problems you always have when developing the front end and the back end is, the API is failing, you don't know why. So, if your front end asks your back end, why is this failing? And it tells you back why it's failing, it's fudge. So this MCP server that took me half an hour to build allows the front end to explore the code on the back end and to explore the APIs and to ask questions to the back end. And this was actually before Cloud had teams and stuff like that. They are now doing this officially. But you have to think about building your own tools. Another example is we are using DuckDB, which is like an API that you can use to query large volumes of data. But there is no DuckDB tool like to explore the data. So there is no tool, we built one. So we have a tool called Granny Duck that we plan to open source that allows you to explore and do queries and do SQL over DuckDB data sets. It's visual, you can drag and drop fields and stuff like that. And we've built a tool. And it was like a couple of afternoons. Yeah.
That's so cool.
This is where we are.
It's like every time that you have a need, you can just spin an hackathon. And because you already built that framework with cloud that makes it super efficient, you can just, instead of, we now have a problem, and you can really approach it as an engineer. I have a problem. I'm going to find a way to fix it. And for us, the tool is coding, or so you just ask Claude, okay, help me develop this. And one thing that I was curious about, because probably as you're developing, you're also putting stuff in the cloud. Do you also use Cloudsweep to check your own code?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
We improved 7-fold the first time we ran it over our own code.
That's
7-fold in performance.
Yeah, that's so cool, because you are basically your first customer, and if it doesn't work good, it also has an impact on you.
Yeah. Our demo, let's say our demo actually includes Cloudsweep code. So when we show you a demo, you also see our repos and our telemetry and billing are there. It's interesting.
That's so cool. And one of the things that you mentioned about Cloudsweep, and I'm not sure if everyone understood by the conversation, but basically what you're mentioning is that because of the whole way that we have been doing cost management in the cloud, it happens very late in the process. And what Cloudsweep does, it's almost the same as you said it, like your static code analysis, your linters, it runs on your CI/CD, right? And then it gives you all this information even before you press merge to main.
So what we say is Cloudsweep shifts cloud cost left. So cloud cost today is an accountant's problem. It becomes an engineering problem, okay? Because the engineers are the ones generating the cost. So we have 3 use cases that we use to demonstrate. The first one is, imagine the first time we run the product on your repo. We are going to, it's very common that we get 200 recommendations upfront, okay? This is your technical debt, but it's your cost technical debt. So we'll tell you, okay, there's a couple of million here if you do these fixes, okay? This is upfront. And obviously, you're not going to apply all those code fixes at once because that would be suicidal. But you are able to choose the ones you want to apply, and you now have a backlog of cost items that you can actually communicate with your engineering lead and also with your CTO and your CFO that these are my initiatives that I'm going to do to lower cloud cost. Because today it's a detective work, you don't even know the initiatives you need to do.
Yeah.
So then it's not actionable. So it's now actionable. So you know what roadmap you need to follow, and you can program the roadmap together with your features. The second one is you are a developer, you're developing your new feature, and you do a pull request for it. And suddenly Cloudsweep tells you, oh, by the way, you are going to increase your cloud cost per tenant by 3K. So don't you want to, here is a fix for the problem. Don't you want to take it, review it, and apply it? Because we apply the fix directly on GitHub. So you don't even need to come to Cloudsweep to see it, because it will be part either of GitHub Actions or a GitHub message that you receive saying, there is this comment on your PR. So this is the second use case. And the third use case, we are not doing that one yet, is imagine you're a production team and you're receiving code from a third party, like one of those Accenture or TCS or something like that that's working for you. And you run Cloudsweep over it and you discover your cloud cost is going to increase 20%. Obviously, you're not going to put that live, right? But today, this is not the case. You don't know. You're going to put it live. You're going to discover your cloud costs just increased 20%. Then you are going to try to understand why it went up 20%. Is it from the release? Is it from the cloud infrastructure? Is it more customers? Yeah, I don't know. So, and then you're going to do the detective work for a few weeks. Then you're going to open a PR for the development people. They are going to analyze it. So you see the difference in the cycle is huge. And this is what we're doing. We are trying to shift it shift it left, so that you don't have to worry about it. I mean, it's something that it will be part of your development process, just like performance, security, or code quality are. This is what we want to do.
Yeah, and it's super interesting because if you do it at the code level, and I was just thinking, like, sometimes if you have a big enterprise and a big corporation, your cloud cost could already be so huge that increase of 20-30% in that project will not even register in the P&L. It's going to be like a point something percent. But in reality, there is stuff that you can already do to avoid the cost. And if you do it afterwards, you'd completely miss the cost because you wouldn't even see it.
Yeah, what you'll see is a higher percentage of your revenue being consumed by cloud cost as time goes by. So your revenue increases, but your cloud cost increases at a higher rate. And this is cost creep. And this is very difficult to do because most of the time it's not a huge thing, because huge things you will be able to detect.
Yeah.
But that 0.5%, 0.1% that you increase on every PR, because what happens? You do the PR with a new feature. It goes to the testing guys. They'll look and say, oh, the cluster is going to be, we need to increase the cluster a little bit. So they increase it a little bit just to cope, like 5%. And then suddenly you're paying a little more, but it's just a little more. When the code requires it, what am I going to do about it? And this compounds. Mm-hmm. And suddenly at the end of the year, you're paying 20% more and you just grew 5%.
Yeah.
And this is we're trying to bring visibility into this problem when it matters. So it's when you're actually doing the change, you're doing the deployment. And providing actionable information to people is what actually solves the problem. It's not about, no one likes doing detective work about something that happened 3 months ago and no one knows where it's coming from.
Yeah, and it's way more work to do that detective work.
It's the same process that you would have that, imagine you have no testing. Okay, this is what you're doing. You have no testing. So you put your code live and then let the customers complain. This is exactly the process that is happening today with cloud cost.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the main reasons of another thing that we spoke about a little bit before, where people are doing this kind of paradigm shift of moving away from the cloud and they want to build their own data centers.
Yes.
But they are forgetting about that this is probably a reason of cost creep that has been going on. And more challenging is that they are forgetting about all of these things that are happening currently with all of this AI boom, where hardware prices are getting way more expensive than before, right?
Yes. Yes. So I think this is something that people do out of desperation. So basically, they see their cloud cost going up. There's some cases that this is not the case. Okay, so in some cases we're talking about sovereignty problems, security problems. You know, all these America versus Europe type of conversations. But those are not the large majority. Okay, the large majority is people that are frustrated because they can't control their cloud cost, and they're saying, "Look, I'm going to create a data center in my basement just for this." Look. Most of my career was spent on people that were actually doing data centers, not myself, but doing projects with people that were doing that. And it's such a pain. I mean, it's procurement, it's growth, it's malfunctions, it's support, it's everything that the cloud solved. It's scalability, obviously. Everything that the cloud solved, you are now bringing back to solve a problem that is solvable in the first place. Okay, you're just doing it wrong. But effectively, bringing in all that cost and complexity and the teams that are required. I mean, imagine a data center. You have to size it for peak. Obviously, you don't want your systems to blow up when they are most needed, right? So you have to do peak plus 20% as an example for the next, and you have to plan it ahead. So you have to understand how much am I going to spend over the next year. So this is actually a growth limitation factor, because imagine you're a SaaS company, you're running on a data center, and your product is wildly popular. You will not be able to cope. Sorry. It's life, because you are not going to be able to scale your data center at the same level your customer base is scaling. So the cloud is unavoidable from that perspective, and SaaS is a product of the cloud. Now, if you do cloud properly, like anything else in life, it's going to be cheaper. You just need to do it properly. If you do it wrong, if you grab your data center historical workload, dump it on the cloud, no elasticity, always look, spikes everywhere, P99s that are that require way more time than P50s. All of that is going to come back and bite you, and you are going to have to provision cloud for peak, not for average. And if you provision cloud for peak, you're obviously going to have idle servers most of the time, and cloud is much more expensive when you rate it by hour. Obviously, the data center there makes sense, because you're buying the same thing, but at a much more expensive rate. Even in those scenarios, think about it. You have to find the building for the data center, find the power, find the hardware, have the team to install it and maintain it, all the networking, all the cooling, all the problems, all the installations, all the upgrades, all the backups. Come on. I mean, I've seen that before. It's not reasonable, and you will not find the hardware today, because RAM prices and stuff like that, because you're competing with people with a lot more money than you have. You will not find the people. Who knows how to maintain a data center today? Yeah. So all of this is nonsense.
Yeah, and you're approaching it with the wrong mindset, because your mindset is just to reduce cost, and there's other ways that you can look at the problem and solve it without having to take this capex of investing on a gigantic data center.
Yes. And not only that, but that capex will only last 3 to 4 years, and you have to do it all again, because you have to buy new hardware. Obviously, there are contracts with the vendors to do that, but even the vendors don't have the scale anymore. I mean, if you are a bank, probably you don't need that. I mean, obviously, in the context of cloud, it's not that big. But if you're a government, it's going to be a different type of problem, or a very large company. Those use cases don't make sense, and for smaller companies like ourselves, also does not make sense. I mean, would I go back and have a few servers under my desk as I had in a few occasions? No, it's a nightmare.
Exactly. And I think that leads us to one of the other topics that I wanted to discuss with you, because all of that ties up to having good leadership that knows what needs to be done and when it needs to be done. So I do have a curiosity from my side is you've grown up in your career from team lead to executive to CIO to founder. You've tried a lot of hats. What is one thing that you didn't expect when you started your leadership journey?
I think you always have to expect the unexpected, but the most difficult thing in all of these is people. Okay, so technical stuff is not a problem. The most difficult part as you go and as you grow in your career is people. Is dealing with difficult people, difficult customers, different colleagues, difficult bosses. That is the part I've grown wary of. One of the reasons I wanted to have a startup is to have something I can actually, control is not my thing. It's more about being able to do things my way and having no one to say, okay, this is wrong. I don't like bullshit conversations. Okay, so in most companies, you waste way too much time in meetings, fruitless meetings, hours and hours of this. So definitely, that has been the biggest joy of having a startup is not having. Every conversation is productive. Every minute counts. Okay, so there is no time for bullshit, politics, and stuff like that. Obviously, you still have to deal with customers, but you're selling a tool. It's not consulting. You don't have to convince people and manage them on a daily basis. I'm selling you an axe. Okay, use it to cut wood. Okay,
Yeah.
you don't want to cut wood, fine. But I don't have to manage your organization to deliver a project. When you deliver a project like that one we participated on Vodafone Turkey, most of the effort is actually managing the customer, managing the all the stuff all the obstacles that come from politics, from economics, from people, and that is the part I don't miss.
Yeah, and integrations with other companies, and then you have one company doing an audit, the other company is doing a bit of the hardware, then
Yes.
the other company is doing a bit of the engineering.
Yes.
Yeah, becomes
And
becomes a
there's
mess.
someone late, and then you're counting on something, it doesn't happen, the spec is not approved, the guys did not deliver the hardware, the guys did not show up.
Yeah,
That is the true nightmare, and that every consultant has led a project of a certain size knows. Okay, this is also something that AI will help solve, unfortunately or fortunately. I think even worse than software companies, I think consulting companies are going to be in a very tight spot over the next few years. What are people doing now with AI? They are using AI as a consultant, right?
Yeah.
So why do you need that McKinsey guy that would come and give you a nice report? You are going to ask ChatGPT. Yeah, is it the same? No. Is it good enough? Yes. If you know what you're doing, it is good enough in 90% of the scenarios. That's why they are firing people on the consulting firms, because the demand is drying up. And that is an existential challenge for consulting companies.
Yeah, if your whole business model is done for creating PowerPoint files, yeah.
Well, consulting is exploring other people's inefficiencies. Okay.
Yeah.
What a consultant does is explore your inefficiency and tell you what to do. If you don't need that, consulting is not very relevant.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. And what is the one thing that you enjoy the most about being a leader?
I think is leading without leading. Meaning,
Yeah.
if you are able to inspire people to do the right thing and to think the right way, one thing I always said is, what I want is that you don't need me anymore. If you don't need me anymore, then it means I did my job, and my job is to make people grow, inspire them, and get results. And you can do all of that without being annoying, without being nitpicking, without being, so leadership it's about that. It's about how I make things happen in the lowest effort possible, lowest attrition possible for everyone. Yeah. And if you
That's
get the result, that's good, the great thing.
that's so cool. Because I also like to tell to my teams that my job is to make myself not needed. Maybe I picked that one up from you along the years, and I never
Uh,
realized.
I hope so. I hope so. Because leadership is not about being the boss. Okay,
Yeah,
the people that like being the boss, they are not leaders. They like being the boss because they like to tell people what to do, and they like to feel powerful. This is not a leader. This will not get you good results at scale.
yeah,
Because people don't like that. I mean, if you want to lead people, they don't need to love you, but you need to inspire them enough for them to follow your ideas, believe in believe in what you want to achieve. Yeah, all of that stuff is the difficult part of being a leader.
And as we enter the final part of the podcast, which is focused on some advices and maybe some future look that I would like to get from you to give to this audience, let's say you have to start over from scratch today, right? You're a young undergrad. What is one advice that you give back to your younger self?
Buy Google.
That's a really good advice.
Yes.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, it's one that is difficult to follow. No, on a more serious note, I don't. I'm not the kind of guy that thinks about the past and thinks I should have done things differently. Obviously, our decisions take you places. Maybe if I, remember when I was at HP and I said, I don't want to go to work for Optimus. If I had said yes, what would have happened? It's not something I fantasize about because there is no point. Yeah, I mean, what I try to do is to try to learn from mistakes, because people that make the same mistake many times, multiple times, obviously are not learning. So understanding the past is more about avoiding mistakes in the future. So that is a very worthy lesson.
yeah, that's a great lesson. And for anyone that is kind of a Portuguese undergrad, so my nephew is about to go into college and I'm already starting to feel old about it. He's turning into 18. He wants to go into software engineering and he's now looking into colleges. So I'm curious, like, what advice would you have for a young person that is now thinking about pursuing a career in computer engineering or something like that?
Yeah, so I think it's going to be tough over the next few years. And people that like programming are going to have it even tougher. Okay. So I think there's no problem in going to computer or software engineering, but your focus should not be on the coding bit. Your focus should be on the engineering bit. How do I achieve my results? How do I take value out of the tools that are out there for me? Because when he finishes, there will be no coding.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
So if obviously this requires that universities adapt as well. Unfortunately, public institutions or large institutions are not very fast. I see this. I mean, imagine in many universities, actually, in most universities, the teachers are actually looking out for people that are using AI to deliver their work. Okay, and giving them bad grades or actually flunking them.
Yeah.
That's a huge mistake. Because that's not reality. Reality is they will have to use AI to achieve their results. So, if you're teaching them to code, but you're not teaching them how to use the tools, how to build a spec, how to evaluate the results, how to make sure it's reliable,
Yeah.
It's a disservice to everyone. Okay. So in all revolutions, this type of thing happens. So what you teach people is actually deprecated. But I've never seen, historically, probably there's no precedent. So because we're commoditizing intelligence, and this is something totally new. And so it's going to be a challenge, but I don't discourage him. I just think that the focus should be what I said before and not on the coding. Which is difficult for youngsters, okay? Because they don't have the life experience to be good cloth assistants, yeah? Because They teach you how to code an algorithm. They don't teach you how to manage a customer or to get a spec out of the customer or to understand what the system A or system B does. Okay, so that's the challenge that young people have, and it's not only in computer science. If you think about lawyers or any craft that requires a lot of information and digging to get information, it's going to be a problem, especially for junior profiles over the next few years. I don't want to be prophet of doom, and I think things will get better, but you need to remain adaptable to be able to survive.
Yeah, and that's a really good advice. And if anyone is listening that will follow that advice and see changes in the future, you can do the same thing as the people in Kenya did and send an email to Jorge saying you are a prophet when he's right.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the tools do not replace your intelligence, so you need to be smart about things.
Yeah, and focusing on engineering, because the basis of engineering is just you want to solve a problem, you want to engineer out a solution, and that's really what our human brains are made to do.
Yes.
And coding is just like, I remember even in the first times I had the interviews in my young career, I remember having a conversation with someone that was hiring me for a PHP work, and I remember having the discussion. Yeah, do you know PHP? Well, I know a little bit about PHP, but I know how to code. I'm pretty sure I can pick up PHP very fast. And they were like, no, PHP is so complex. It's the most complex language in the world. I was like, okay, maybe you're right. I didn't went to work for him. So let's put it like that.
The example I usually give my guys is like, okay, so before people were cutting trees with axes, right? So now you have a chainsaw.
Yeah.
You can cut many more trees in the same time. Now you need to learn how to use the chainsaw. You don't start saying, "Oh, the axe was so good."
Okay.
You can, but you're going to be deprecated soon.
Yeah, and that's such an interesting way of looking at it, because I can see all of the same kind of complaints. Oh, the chainsaw is less secure. You're more prone to making an error. If you do an error, it's going to be X amount of times more than an X.
we do code quality for a living, right? Cost, quality, performance, stuff like that. Our tool picks it up. There is no difference between the generated code and the manually coded code. Exactly. Okay, we found crap everywhere.
Yeah,
I'm yet to find a repository where there is no problem, where there are no problems, and we've done hundreds, not thousands of them. So there is no difference.
Indeed. Otherwise, QAs wouldn't be needed to have a job, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Cool. And I think this is such a great way for us to end on a high note of why we need humans. Jorge, thank you so much for coming to the podcast and having this chat with me. But before I let you go, if people want to find more about you, about Cloudsweep, what is the best way for them to do so?
They can contact me on LinkedIn. So I have a LinkedIn profile. I'll be happy for you to share it on your post. So no problem whatsoever. I'll be always happy to help. I do a couple of posts a week on subjects about Cloudsweep, but also subjects that are more generic, things like the ones we're discussing. So I'll be happy to help anyone.
Awesome, and I'll make sure to leave all of those details in the show notes as well for people that are listening in either YouTube or Spotify, that they can jump in and learn a little bit more about Cloudsweep. Jorge, again,
thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming to the show, and for everyone that is still listening, be aware of your DynamoDB costs, and see you again in another episode of Coffee and Bytes.
After cup,
Hey, you're still here. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have enjoyed this episode. It was the first time ever that we did a video podcast, and I was waiting to talk with George for a long time. So if you got any value out of it, and maybe we earned like, share, or subscribe from you, it really helps the algorithm. We need to keep it fat, and so that we can post the channel to ever more people. If you still haven't had enough of us yet, consider joining our Discord community. Many previous guests are there. We discuss topics once in a while, and now we are launching some live events there, so that could be cool as well. So that's pretty much about the episode. If you want, you can keep enjoying the background music. I'll see you again for another Coffee and Bite soon. Bye.
Coffee and bites, stories brew bright. See you next cup. Keep the